When you visualize a glass of water, you start with a full glass. You just keep pouring, and then it just spills over and spills over because, you're giving to this person and this situation and this opportunity and this decision. And you wake up the next day and you have nothing left to give. And that's how most parents are operating. There were times where I wasn't present enough. I wouldn't have changed my trajectory as a businesswoman because that's also inspired her to go after her dreams. I kind of have to go through some real challenges, like life setbacks, and then work their way through them. And I think that's really where the maturity happens.
That is what we want to help our own kids with. It's like, you're the only one in your way. Welcome to the Bad Mom Podcast, Parenting the Anxious Generation with Vivian Glyck. Allison Maslan, how are you?
I am so good, Vivian. I'm so glad we're finally doing this.
I'm really excited. And you and I have been friends for such a long time, and we have really had the opportunity to watch ourselves grow and recede and grow in our businesses, but also to witness ourselves as mothers. Probably, I think we both agree, the most important, tenuous, difficult, rewarding role of our lives.
Many conversations over the years. Many.
Too many conversations. So, I mean, Allison, I have so much respect for your tenacity in building your businesses, in reinventing yourself, and in continuing to be the best bad mom you can be.
Hey. If you're going to do it, you got to be the baddest.
The baddest. So, I want to get to this conversation around really helping our kids to scale and to grow. And I know that your whole business and what you do with entrepreneurs is built around helping them to scale. And that is a very different equation than I think some of us think of. A lot of us think of scaling as like you're going to work harder and you're going to be inserting yourself more in your business, et cetera. And what you really teach is about how to build systems to extricate yourself from your business so that it can take off and you can have the kind of freedom that you have right now, spending half of your year in beautiful Mexico and being able to travel and have more freedom. But I also know that you spent many years being a single mom and being able to support you have one daughter. Mm-hmm. And can you tell us a little bit about your challenges being able to balance that, what some of the hardest moments were for you, and what you would tell moms and parents now, particularly in an age where it's even more complex?
Yeah, I think about this a lot, Vivian. And it's interesting because the kind of two things go together, which you shared about what we help entrepreneurs do to get their life back in scale, is because I had the opposite, in my earlier years. And I really took my daughter everywhere, every business, every new kind of venture that I was in. And as a single mom, I just didn't really have the support. And it was hard, it was hard trying to manage everything, and you want to create a good life for your kids financially and all of that. So I was pulled in so many different directions. I mean, I have the memories at 6:30 a.m. driving to junior high or high school with rap music on, and all the stuff, and trying to keep her out of trouble. We didn't have the ways that we do now to know where our kids are. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, to be honest, because my daughter is 30, she'll be 38 in a couple of weeks, which I just can't believe because
Holy cow, how did that happen?
how
You're
did
not
that
even
happen,
38.
Vivian? I know, but they're always your baby. They're always your
Yeah.
baby. I would say I would probably go back. I would probably do it differently.
Mm.
Well, let's see. What would I say? I don't have regrets because I don't live in regrets. And I think I really feel that everything is a lesson. And I think that we can beat ourselves up so much as parents because there's so much knowledge in hindsight. But we're all really just learning along the way. And I think that there were times where I wasn't present enough. I wouldn't have changed my trajectory as a businesswoman because that's also inspired her to go after her dreams. But especially in those teenage years where we feel like, gosh, they're older now, they can have their independence, they're more responsible, and they're not, it's not always the case. There's a whole spectrum. Now you have some kids that are just on it. And this isn't a criticism to my daughter in any means, but she is very highly ADHD. And it was just for her to even manage herself was a challenge. She was very enticed. I remember when she was like in ninth grade in high school, and she's with seniors in the same school who were going out to parties and doing all kinds of things. And she was like, I want to do that, And so I would say for parents right now that are trying to manage it all, number one, get the support because you need a support system. And the early days, I did not have that. I wish I did. But also know that that time is so precious. And as you're older, you wish, you're like, oh, I wish I could go back a day or two or a week or two or a month and say things that I didn't say or be fully present at that soccer game or in the conversation or the things that they were sharing because we're so distracted in all of the other things that are pulling us in our lives. But it does matter and it does make an impact.
So when you say to get support, what does that look like? Because that's got to be different for a lot of people in a lot of different arenas, socioeconomic arenas, relationship arenas. Like, what does that, and not so much what does it look like externally, but what does it feel like internally to know that you have support and you're taking care of yourself first? Because nothing's truer than put your own oxygen mask on first, because you got nothing to give if you're completely burned out.
Yeah, I mean, you visualize a glass of water. You start with a full glass and you just keep pouring and then it just spills over and spills over because, you're giving to this person and this situation, and this opportunity and this decision and this family issue. And you wake up the next day and you have nothing left to give. And that's how most parents are operating. And so it's hard to fully be present. So what do I mean by support? It really can be all kinds of support depending on what you need. Back then for me, had I had a business coach, a mentor to help me to navigate through because I was trying to figure it out on my own. And it was extremely stressful. And I ended up having a bad car accident from the stress of it back then that I miraculously recovered from. But it could be a therapist. It could be just that you are surrounding yourself with your friends. I think that as we get older, we don't make the time for our friends because we feel like we're too busy. So that you actually have to put an intention towards that. It could be spiritual support. It could be couples counseling, whatever it is a strength to reach out for support, not a weakness.
That's so interesting, because when I hear you talk and you talk about, getting a mentor and getting a coach, it's like you created a whole industry around that.
I did. So after
probably in some ways, because that's what you had needed.
100%. But I eventually did. I mean, after that accident and after realizing that I was creating my own chaos in my life, I just didn't want to zigzag anymore. I really just wanted to take the toll road. I wanted to have a nice life. I wanted to be present for my daughter. I remember driving by the beach in San Diego where we both live, and I'd see all these people in the middle of the day on the beach and in the middle of the week, and I'd be like, how are they doing this? I don't understand, because I really was, the business was running me instead of it, and I was just running so fast trying to keep up and also take care of her. And so after that whole incident, I did end up getting a coach and then never looking back. And still to this day, even though it's been now over 40 years in business and in many, many different businesses, it's not that I'm not smart. It's just that you're so close to the situation. In any area of your life, you're emotionally close to it. So you have blinders on. You're not really seeing the full scope of what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. And wow, you're such a fascinating human being. You've been a homeopathy expert, which I want to talk a little bit about. You are a trapeze artist. And you're so committed to that and to putting yourself at risk every time you get out there on the trapeze and just upping your skills. And, can you tell me a little bit, like the trapeze is such a great metaphor for just stepping into the abyss and hoping there's a net
really
there.
It is, it's not why I got into the trapeze, because I was a gymnast growing up.
Yeah.
And so when I was little, I had a set of uneven bars in my backyard, and I used to swing on it for hours and hours. And I was the state champion in the uneven bars when I was younger. And so I went to Club Med in my early 30s to get over.
As we did.
To get over a breakup, and I just remember walking and looking up and seeing this massive contraption like you would see in the circus. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. We can really do this? And so that was it. I got completely hooked. And then I spent the next 20 years driving back from San Diego to LA training with a 5-generation circus family that had flown in Ringling Brothers for 25 years. And with a lot of people from Cirque du Soleil and everything. So it became a big part of my life. It was a way for me to disconnect and just have something that filled me up, separate from business, separate from mom. And I think that's really important. I think we all need that, whether it's painting or golf or meditation. And so then back in 2017, I believe, when we ended up getting a bigger property, we had one built in our backyard, much to my husband's chagrin. And
like most people have a full scale trapeze.
Yeah, not really.
No.
Not really. But I get to walk out my back door and get up there. And I work with a coach, so just talk about getting support. I have a coach on that. And for me, what the trapeze is, first of all, it's just a blast. But it is scary, You're up there 40 feet in the air. And so it's a great teacher, because the thoughts they come in like, oh my God, you could break your neck. Maybe I'm not supposed to be here today. Your brain does weird things. And so I've had to learn to just go, shut up, like I'm not going there. And I've learned to block it out and visualize and get real clear on what I'm about to do and be intentional and do it regardless of the fear. And so that in repetition over so many years, and then the teamwork and decision making, all the things that go with that have helped me to be a stronger, more resilient human being, business owner, mom on the
And
ground.
you've actually used that as a metaphor for your whole business, your big bestseller, Scale or Fail, is the imagery is about grabbing that that swing, or what's the term for it,
Yeah,
as it's
the
coming
trapeze
toward
bar, taking the
the
leap, right? Taking,
yeah, taking the leap. And so I think you and I would agree, even with my son is, over a decade younger than your daughter, but I think we've seen them, there's a hesitancy in this generation to take risks. They didn't have to fall on their face as much.
yes.
We wanted to love every problem away for them. And so their resilience, I think across the board, is not just you and me, their resilience is challenged. So,
Mm-hmm.
You've been around the trapeze a lot, and this stepping up and taking risks. Like, how would you counsel that metaphor for a kid or a parent who's seeing their kid go, I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to do it wrong. What if I fail? They're all like driven into this perfectionist thing now, because everything, you can't fail in private anymore.
Yeah, no, for sure. Um, that's such a great question. I would say, it's interesting with our generation, we kind of parented ourselves. I know I felt that way and love my mom, but it was so different. When I was in college, we'd maybe talk once a month. It's just so different. And I think there was a resilience that came from that because we had to. And I think that, we always want to give what we didn't have, or we're going to do better and we're going to do more. And that doesn't always serve the kids. And it's so hard to see them struggle and in pain. But every time we jump in to try to fix it, we're actually setting them backwards. Because it's the same thing like with my team. We have 75, close to 80 employees. And if I'm constantly giving them the answers when they're coming to me with questions, they'll keep coming back to me with the same questions over and over again. Because there's a part of their brain that's going to turn off going, well, Allison's going to fix it for me. So I don't really need to own this. And sometimes it feels easier for us to just do it for them. But how are they ever going to learn or build their own muscles if we're doing that? But I had a therapist one time say to me, make it as hard as you can for them. And that was, I didn't really get that at the time, but when they have to figure it out, like I think we've talked about this before. Oh, hey mom, my iPhone broke. Oh, tough. I'm so sorry about that. Fix it. Go take care of it.
Go buy
Yeah,
yourself a
depends
new
on the
one.
age we're talking about. Obviously, if you're much younger, but I think we have to let them grow up and learn to take, or they'll never take the leap.
As a mom and someone who cares deeply about mental health, I'm paying a lot of attention to what I put in my body because I know how it impacts how I show up in my life. And I'll be honest, I never really questioned my coffee until I learned that over 90% of coffee can contain mold toxins and that those toxins can contribute to things like brain fog, fatigue, and that midday crash. Who needs that? That's what led me to try Danger Coffee. What makes it different is that it's mold tested and toxin screened, so it's clean. But what really mattered to me is that it's also remineralized with over 50 trace minerals and electrolytes because most coffee actually depletes your body. And who needs that? Since switching, I've noticed the flavor is dramatically better than my old coffee. And what I love most is that I get the lift without the jitters. And I feel like I have energy the entire day after drinking it in the morning. Because for me, this isn't just about coffee, it's about showing up with clarity, energy, and presence for the people who matter most to me. If you drink coffee every day, this is such a powerful and easy upgrade. Go to dangercoffee.com/bad mom for 10% off your order. Again, that's dangercoffee.com/bad mom.
So I think that's so important, is that they will never figure it out if we keep solving the issue for them. I mean, that's simple, right? But I think the more difficult thing is to, for me anyway, is to say, okay, I'm going to be a bad mom right now. I'm not going to help you out. That, I think, is the harder thing, is to say, I'm going to put up with the pain of watching you struggle.
Yeah. Yeah, because it really is. I remember when my daughter was going through a difficult time as a teenager, when, she was kind of getting into trouble and getting into situations where she shouldn't. And her dad and I were divorced. And so there was all that dynamic that was happening at the time. And I just remembered saying to her several times, my job is not to be your friend. My job is to be your parent. And you may not like me right now, but I love you. And that's, I must have said that, 100 times. And years later, she really thanked me because there was so much going on at the time with Oxycontin and all kinds of things that were, kids were literally dying. And so I had to really kind of put the kibosh on things. I had to be that bad mom, the strict, all of that, which I didn't have Life 360 or some geo, because I was literally physically following her around. It was, and not because she was a bad kid by any means. She's just being a kid and curious and excited about life and so forth.
And what would you say because I think it's really difficult to imagine that when it's really hitting the fan and you're in the middle of it, it's really difficult to know that you're doing the right thing by restricting, because it's not your nature or my nature to be like, no, you can't have that. No, I don't want to make life easy for you. But I think for parents who are going through it now your daughter is in her 30s. My son is 23, unbelievably. And I'm starting to see that prefrontal cortex start to take command, the executive function actually start to work. Like, when did you start to really see, because I think it is a biological thing in a lot of ways, especially your daughter, as you said, ADHD, as well as my son. And I think that they are, even though their intellect may be way beyond, their maturity is a couple of years behind, which is really frustrating when you're trying to
Yeah,
get
and
on
it's
with your life.
confusing because they're so smart
Right.
and they have the best answers for everything. I always thought, she needs to be a trial attorney
Yeah.
because she always had the best answers, and I would kind of go, yeah, you kind of can't argue with that. Uh,
Yeah.
and so I think that kids and young adults mature at different rates. And I think that for her, I mean, in her mid 20s, I started seeing changes. And we have an amazing relationship now. I mean, we talk all the time. But yeah, I think that they kind of have to go through some real challenges, like life setbacks, and then work their way through them. And I think that's really where the maturity happens. And
Yeah.
all we're wanting is good things for them to happen, and we want them to be happy. I'm the same way. But what I have seen for her is the biggest growth has happened through the difficult times,
Yeah.
even though it pains you so much to see them go through it. The other thing, the other big lesson for me, and you probably have gone through this too, Vivian, is that, your kids are not you. And, we have this idea for our kids. We get them in the best school. We do all these things because we want them to have a great life and a successful life. But what really does success mean to them? And it's sometimes quite the opposite of what your standards are for yourself. Doesn't mean they don't want to have a nice life and a successful life, but it's probably a completely different journey. And that's something that I had to learn the hard way until she just was like, Mom, I'm not you. I'm never going to be you. It was like, I felt terrible that I was, in her mind, putting that upon her.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we can give them grace to find themselves and be themselves and be okay with what that means. What do you want for your kids? You at the end of that, is it that they at the end of their life they were super successful and miserable, or that they led a happy life?
Well, I think for one of the things that I've really uncovered is I just want my kid to be loved, so that they are, and that has to start with self-love, to your point. Like for all of us, it doesn't matter. Nobody can convince you how fabulous you are if you don't feel that way on the inside, if you're not self-empowered. And I think that what you talked about with, needing to accept that your kid is not you it's such a spiritual practice. I mean, it almost cleaves you in two to release that projection and expectation. And I know there are better parents than me who can do that more easily, but I have found that the more I can let go, the more my kid grows. If we're not projecting our expectations and then their sense of inadequacy and not being able to make us happy is what's prevailing instead of their own confidence, because falling on your face and picking yourself back up gives you a heck of a lot more confidence than being able to shoot that 3-pointer, right?
Yeah, I mean, so much, so much.
Yeah.
It is like
Yeah.
you said, it's probably there's a lot of spiritual growth for ourselves in letting go. And I remember literally going through that process with her. We used to kind of do this. We're both Aries and strong-minded.
Oh,
And then we'd be hugging, like 20 minutes later. But when I started really letting go and just being present and just loving her for her, and she is so lovable, and let go of these, what my intention was for her, everything changed. I saw
Yeah.
her confidence grow. I saw her loving herself more, and she wanted to be around me more,
Yeah.
and we have so much fun
Yeah.
together.
Like what you're hearing? Subscribe and hit that like button so more parents can find these tools. Remember, you're not a bad mom. You're a badass in a broken system.
I know we just have a couple of minutes left, so I do want to circle around to your work and your coaching business, and probably how many, I know you have men and women in your community, but how many women and parents, I'm sure most of them are parents in your community, and kind of what what your work is and what the value of coaching, because you coach for business, but really the secret is you're coaching for personal growth, fulfillment, satisfaction, and spiritual expansion. So can you just talk for a minute about that?
Yeah, I mean, we say scaling businesses, transforming lives. That's our tagline at Pinnacle Global Network. That's the name of my company. Because I see scaling really as this holistic practice. And probably that's because I was a homeopathic physician for 20 years. And so I would help people get healthy and really looking at all aspects of their life. And so it's, we're not parts of a car. Everything about us affects everything else.
Right.
So we want to scale up the business, but we also want to scale up ourselves, our confidence, our view of our potential, our free time, so that we can have more time with our family, that we can make the choices that we want in our lives. And that's really, we're in our 17th year, which is hard to believe. And we have close to 500 CEOs that we mentor all over the world, and to help them scale. And many of them are their parents, their grandparents, their spouses, family businesses, and so forth. We've helped many where the kids, it's the succession coming in and taking over the business as well. And that's so gratifying to see. But it's, to me, I've built so many businesses. I've spent my life kind of taking all kinds of leaps. So the fun thing for me really is just to help others do the same. And we're all in our own way. We are the thing that's keeping us from that breaking through that glass ceiling.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah.
We are the thing. So we just help put a mirror up, help them to see, where their own blind spots are, and to give them that toll road so that they can get there faster, and so forth. And we just have great community and connection. They feel like family to me.
And eventually that is what we want to help our own kids with. It's like, you're the only one in your way.
Exactly. Well, my daughter happens to work, on our team, and she's done many different things over the years, and it's all been part of her finding herself, from doing social media. Then she was doing all of our copywriting, and she did that really successfully. Now she is designing the stage sets and for all of our events, our signage, and all the gifts and things that we do. So it's fun to see your kids blossom in that way. And selfishly, I get to spend more time with her, which is nice.
That's so great. So just really quickly also, I know that I just want to, can you quickly define homeopathy and what kinds of conditions you've used homeopathy, especially around mental health, focus, et cetera? Because I know that like every time I talk to you, you're like, there's a remedy for that.
No, seriously. Well, I treated thousands of patients over the years. Homeopathy's been around for over 200 years. In fact, The only monument in Washington, D.C. Is to the founder of homeopathy. The only medical monument is to the founder of homeopathy, Samuel Hahnemann. And so he was a physician in Germany that, really discovered homeopathy. And basically, it's a system based on the law of similars. In Western medicine is called allopathy, which means it's treating the opposite. And so, like if you can't sleep and your mind is awake, you take a sedative form that kind of puts you to sleep. In homeopathy, the word, homeopathy, meaning the same, is you would actually take something that creates the same symptoms in the body. So if you can't sleep, it would actually be a very, very, very diluted form of like a coffee or something. There's 4,000 different remedies, and they're all very safe even for babies. And so because the body cannot hold two like diseases, the substance representing one and whatever you're struggling with, one cancels out the other. And so it's very gentle because it's working with the body. And so we even use it, we just gave one, my bulldog yesterday had some kind of weird stomach thing here. And so I ended up treating her with that, and she's better today. So it can be used, I had patients from cardiologists, oncologists, just all types of specialists that used to refer me patients, psychologists and psychiatrists and so forth, that I treated, a range of things along with other things that they were doing. But I worked with a lot of mental health patients, and I worked with a lot of children. So I don't practice anymore, but I highly recommend if somebody wants to get more resilience for your children, because what it does is it balances the whole system. So it helps their body, their mental, physical, emotional state become more resilient, so that whatever comes along, they're just able to handle it better. They're stronger, they're more grounded. And so I treated kids that had all kinds, I'd have kids like ripping my whole office apart. I had extremes, kids that were somewhat violent to, kids that were traumatized and in a shell. And I would work with the parents and so forth, and worked with therapists and so forth as well. And it was miraculous what I would see.
So you would suggest, if there are some issues, to start with some homeopathic treatments and remedies.
Yeah. Well, I would say that a lot of people use the word homeopathic loosely.
Yeah.
So just because someone says it, they often use that word for holistic, but it's its own science. So you want a certified classical homeopath. So CCH after their name, because this is many, many years of study and a certification that's almost like getting a bar exam. So you want to make sure you're going to someone that's really qualified. CCH after their name, they've had years and years of study. And you can, Google that, find somebody in your area. And I can't recommend it enough. I still do homeopathy for myself, my family. It really
for
is
your dogs.
reason that I can fly on the trapeze, run these businesses at this point in my life. I really do believe that that's a big part of it.
That's so great. I know you've definitely helped me on many occasions. Tell me a little bit, where can we find out more about your business? I want to refer people to your book. I know you're working on a new book. But where can we find out more about Pinnacle Global and your, how you're supporting the parents of the world in their businesses?
Vivian. They can go to, first of all, our website, pinnacleglobalnetwork.com. You can message me on any social media. It's Allison Maslan, my name. So I'm there, whether it's Instagram or LinkedIn, and happy to answer any questions that you have. And yeah, I would just say, first of all, thanks for having me, Vivian. And parents, hang in there. You're doing an amazing job. And, you know, your kids are going to blame you for stuff no matter what. So just, just do the best you can, and they will come around. That's the other thing. They will come around. You'll have a great relationship. Just, you know, be present as much as you can, but don't beat yourself up. My mom and I had somewhat of a tumultuous relationship when I was a teenager because I was the stubborn one. Go figure that. And now, you know, our moms, right, are about the same age, and I have an amazing relationship with my mom. So, hey, it all works out.
Yeah. Life is long. If life is long, it's short, it's all the things. But I think transformation and maturity and growth is what we can really anticipate.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Allison. I really appreciate you in so many ways and for coming on, and really look forward to continuing this parenting route.
I know. It never ends. It never ends. Well, you know, I love you, Vivian. And I want to give you just some props for doing this podcast, because I think, you know, when we were talking about it and you said bad mom, I was like, oh my God, that's so great, because, you know, we want to be a badass mom, but we also have had so many times where like, I'm screwing up royally, you know, man, the terrain out there right now, being a parent, for those of you that are walking this path now, more power to you, you know, and yeah, it will all come together. That's all I can say.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Love you too, sister.
All right. Bye.
Head over to badmompodcast.com/Allison, where you'll find the complete show notes, links to every resource we mentioned, and much more. That's badmompodcast.com/Allison. You're not a bad mom. You're not a bad parent. You're a badass in a broken system. Keep fighting. We've got your back. This is the unlearning. This is the undoing. This is the uprising. Bad parents unite because they'd rather you stay silent.